Introducing new dirty drinks from Sonic. Whatever your fave is, you can now make it dirty. Fanta fans can make it dirty. Dr. Pepper devotees can make it dirty. Even ocean water aficionados can make it dirty. You name it, we can make it dirty. Now you may be asking yourself, how do you make a Sonic drink dirty? By infusing it with a delicious blend of coconut flavor, sweet cream, and lime, of course. What were you thinking? Get your brain out of the gutter. New dirty drinks, now at Sonic. Fanta and Dr. Pepper are used under license. Limited time only at participating Sonic drive-ins.
Hi guys, quick one before we get into the episode. This episode is sponsored by Zencastr, which is the production suite that I've used from the very beginning of this podcast. And if you're interested in starting your own podcast, hang around at the end of the episode for our 30% discount referral code. Thanks.
So our podcast is called Right and Wrong.
Are these your notes?
These
Are these your notes about what we're going to say?
Anything.
Nailed it.
It's a short answer.
So how many novels did you not finish?
Oh my God, so many.
It was perfect. What's she talking about? This is nonsense.
Ooh, a spicy question. I love it.
This is it, guys. The big secret to getting published is you have to write a good book. You heard it here first. Hello, and welcome back to the Right and Wrong podcast. I'm Jamie, and today I have a treat for you, as it's not only one, but two guests. It's storytelling power couple, Kirsty Eyre and Adam Simcox. Hey guys, welcome to the show.
Hi, Jamie.
Hey, Jamie, it's good to be here. Power couple, I like it.
Yeah, I've not been called that before.
No.
Well, between the two of you, not only some books out, but also theatre, television, web series. Is there any storytelling that you guys don't do?
Telling the kids stories at night, maybe. We're kind of like tapped out by that point.
Yeah, we try to
your
cover
poor
all
children.
genres, don't we, between us?
We do.
You do, yeah. So before we get into any of that, it's quite an action-packed few months for you both. Let's start off with the most recent news, the launch of Kirsty's latest book, You Had Me at Halloumi. What's it all about?
So this time round, I've been writing under the pseudonym Ginger Jones, and You Had Me at Halloumi is pretty much what it is on the tin. It's a rom-com, so based in Cyprus, and it follows Freya, who goes out to Cyprus to try and win the Golden Spoon, which is a prestigious culinary award, and she has to try and beat 7 contestants to claim it. So there's a bit of sand, sea, and lots of cucumber.
Okay.
From a Satsiki point of view, obviously.
Yep. Sounds great. And I do, the keen-eared listeners will know that Caroline Sheldon did mention it when she was on. And it's a 10 out of 10 title. Absolutely love it. As soon as I heard it, I was like, yes. Great stuff. I do want to ask, why the pseudonym Ginger Jones? Because your first book, Cowgirl, winner of the inaugural Comedy Women in Print 2019, is under Kirsty Eyre, not Ginger Jones.
Yeah, it's a really good question and quite a complicated answer, so I'll try and keep it really simple, just like my small brain. But basically, there are many benefits to writing under a pseudonym. If, for example, you wanted to break away from the genre that you're writing in, and you know, it's difficult to cross over, isn't it? So I think JK is probably a really good example of someone who's done something different with a different name.
Yeah, I would say that's from what I see it as, that's more a sort of Stephen King kind of thing, where she's so famous for one thing that she needed to use a different name to actually do anything else.
Yeah, let's be honest, Jamie, I'm not quite there yet.
No, but I've definitely, there's lots of authors who either started in children's or started in adult, but then wanted to do the opposite thing. And sometimes it's easier just to use a different name so that people don't confuse the two.
Yes, and Ginger Jones sounds kind of culinary and spicy, doesn't she?
It does, yeah. I like it. Focusing more on Adam now, looking ahead to August, where your latest, The Generation Killer, is out on the 18th. And this is the sequel to your dark supernatural police procedural, The Dying Squad. What's the elevator pitch for that series?
That's a good question. So yeah, the first in the series, The Dying Squad, came out last July, and it's about a detective who has to solve his own murder.
Mhm.
So the Dying Squad are a supernatural police force that solve crimes that the flesh and blood living police can't. So yeah, in the first book, Joe Lazarus has to solve his own murder. In the second book, he's on the trail of a serial killer in Manchester called the Generation Killer, who murders the youngest member of the family as well as the oldest, kind of wiping out the generation line. And they're both kind of, I guess, although they kind of deal a lot in the fantastical and the supernatural, they're both kind of quite noir-y, gritty thrillers. So it's kind of not particularly like the lightness of touch of, say, something like Rivers of London. It's a bit more blood and gutsy.
Oh, okay. A bit more visceral.
Yeah.
Is it? Do you sort of lean into the grim, dark kind of areas where it's, no good deed goes unpunished?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I've tried to keep, although they deal in the kind of fantastical, I've tried to keep them as realistic as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But I've tried to keep, there's dark humor in it, I think. Daisy May, who's Joe's partner, she's quite wise talking and a bit kind of blunt speaking, and hopefully the humor comes through her, because I think if it's all too dark, you just kind of get a bit anaesthetized to it as a reader.
Yes.
You need the light and shade to kind of keep people reading.
Yeah. It's like, I'm a huge fan of Joe Abercrombie.
Okay.
And he very much has it's fantasy and obviously a bit different, but it's still a sort of very dark, bad things happen kind of world. But he does that same thing where he cuts it with humor, which kind of keeps you from just getting bogged down in all the terrible things that are happening.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, he's a master at doing that. He really is. And we've got the same publisher, funnily enough.
Oh, amazing.
They three Galans. Yeah, so Galans have obviously got a type.
Yeah. Dark humor. They love it. So the two of you, very different styles. Romance and cooking versus dark, coming back from the dead kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Do you ever consult each other and do sort of critique and stuff for each other while you're writing stuff, or do you keep it very separate?
We are each other's beta readers first and foremost, aren't we?
Amazing.
So that's one really great advantage, actually, of both of you writing. Even though we're writing completely different things, it's always brilliant to get that first pair of eyes on it, and we will be the first to read each other's work.
Yeah.
Maybe we're a bit too brutally honest with each other with feedback.
I think it's kind of been an aspect of our relationship right from the start, really, because we met on a play that Kirsty had written and was directing, and I was making a film for it, and I had like a small acting role in it as well. So that kind of critiquing each other's work and working together has been there right from the start. And certainly with writing, like Kirsty's the one I want to impress the most. Like she sees it first, and I always kind of want to impress her, even though we've been doing it for quite a while now. She would say that she takes the critique a lot better than I would, and she's definitely right. She's 100% right.
Do you think that comes from the theatre background? Are people more sort of savage in theatre critique?
I don't know. I mean, I think maybe. I think
basically Adam likes me to prefix my feedback with, I mean, it's obviously fantastic. Don't you?
Yeah, and like you're God, and like no one's better than you.
I worship you.
Yeah,
this is amazing.
Best
thing you've ever written.
I don't think that's unreasonable, to be honest.
I think that's standard practice in the industry.
Absolutely, yeah.
Where you say something really nice, put the bad thing in the middle, and they say something really nice at the end.
It completely is. I mean, because we both did like the Curtis Brown creative course, and that was one of the things they taught you because there was it revolved around feedback. Is like say the good things first, and just from a human nature thing, it does make sense, because I think if you start with the negative stuff, your kind of defenses go up a little bit. It's like, you don't know what you're talking about. You're an idiot. But if you kind of say a few good things first, I think you're more open to the critiquing.
Yeah. And then finish on good things as well.
Yeah, I think as well, when you live together and you've got children together and your lives are really interwoven, realistically, when you're reading someone's work, you don't have the luxury, of each other's work, you don't have the luxury of going away, reading the whole book and then consolidating your feedback and then playing it back, in a really lovely way. You're literally on the school run and then may have read like one chapter on the way into work, and then I'm texting Adam just going, chapter 7, really loved it. I think you've got some typos here. Don't understand this bit. I'm lost now. Is this guy alive or is he dead or is he a ghost? And then, it's not actually that eloquent in a text message, but it's just the fastest way of saying, yeah, I've read a bit more. Here's my feedback.
That's good though, because I mean, the way that a lot of, and I've been a member of a couple of critique groups, the way that a lot of them are structured are people send out the work in advance, you read it, you kind of put it together in a little document or what have you, make some notes, and then you sort of meet up somewhere some days, maybe weeks later, and you've had time to sort of very, very clearly summarize it in your head, and you can deliver it in a very sort of delicate way. But the way that you guys are doing it, that sort of whiplash reaction might actually be better in some ways.
Yeah, it's more immediate, I think.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes that is a benefit to kind of have your initial take on it. Some things need a little bit more, and it's also just a practicality thing, isn't it? Really, like.
Yeah, I also think over time we've learnt to share earlier. Early days you kind of wrap your hands around your manuscript and don't want anyone to read it until you've got it as good as you can get it, which you're always trained to do, obviously, if you're pitching to an agent or a publisher, of course. But just in terms of a beta reader who is also your partner, I think it pays dividends to show early in case the person just thinks that you're completely on the wrong track. And then, of course, you haven't invested months and months and written an entire novel that has gone off piste a bit, really. So I think it pays to show earlier, even if it's a bit scrappy.
Yeah, I think if you have the right person, 100% true.
Yeah, I think that's the good point. It's finding that person. Obviously, we're married. We've known each other quite a long time, so we kind of trust each other.
Yeah,
I think feedback is 100% vital, and you have to get used to getting it if you want to be a writer or anything in the creative industry, really, because you're going to get it all the time, whether you want it or not. But it is finding, I think, a group of people whose opinion you trust.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I think it can be quite damaging.
Yeah, and it's also about understanding the way that, let's say you're in a group of 5 people, so 4 people are going to critique your work. It's about understanding what critique each of those people sort of individually will give you that's really good, and the stuff that you probably don't necessarily want to pay that much heed to what they're saying, because everyone will have their own take and their own way that they sort of want to perceive things.
Yeah.
And some people are really good at one thing, some people are really good at another thing. And it's about understanding how the two of you kind of will create the best outcome, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the good things with Kirsty and I is because we do write in different genres and different styles.
Yeah.
I think it's good to have that kind of degree of separation, because if the kind of danger is if you just get feedback from people that work in the same genre and the same style, it's a bit of an echo chamber. Whereas with Kirsty, or whether I'm doing her stuff or she does mine, we just kind of break it down in terms of, does this work as a story, like the mechanics of it, which I think is quite useful.
Yeah, and I agree that you need a cross-section, really, of beta readers. I was lucky enough to pick up a few from my Curtis Brown creative course that I was on. That was back in 2017. And the majority of us, out of the 15 that were on the course, are still on a WhatsApp group and read each other's work. It's been really, really useful. And like you said, like different people bring different perspective, and everyone helps you get your manuscript as good as you can get it.
Yes, exactly. So you guys met while you were working in screenwriting and theatre. Were you both writing sort of novels at that point, or did that come later?
That's a good question.
It came a little bit later, actually. So I was writing for theatre and Adam was writing for screen.
Yeah.
And yeah, Adam mentioned earlier that I abused the the casting couch because I was directing Adam in a play.
A real me too moment, no, Jamie. A real me too moment.
And I remember casting Adam by text message because he was on his brother's stag do at the time. And I said, "Are you all right to accept the role of Dazza, who was a real lad in my play called Happy Chuffing Christmas?" And I remember Adam going, "Does it really matter that Dazza has actually got real bad sunburn at the moment?" And then that's kind of the start of a beautiful relationship, wouldn't you say? Yeah. And it wasn't until we had our first child, Alfie, so that was 2012, that I think it was me that decided I was going to write this book. And part of it was previously when I used to write plays, I had the luxury of being able to spend evenings and weekends at rehearsals to actually direct the plays and put them on.
Yeah.
And then once you've got children, obviously, and they're very young, you're out of the game for all of that sort of thing. So I thought, what can I write where I have no dependency on either actors or crew? And I just thought, I'm going to just plod away at a novel. And that was the one that became Cowgirl, which came out in 2020.
My brother-in-law died suddenly, and now my sister and her kids have to sell their home. That's why I told my husband we could not put off getting life insurance any longer. An agent offered us a 10-year, $500,000 policy for nearly $50 a month. Then we called SelectQuote. SelectQuote found us identical coverage for only $19 a month, a savings of $369 a year.
Whether you need a $500,000 policy or a $5 million policy, SelectQuote could save you more than 50% on term life insurance.
For your free quote, go to SelectQuote.com. SelectQuote.com. That's SelectQuote.com.
SelectQuote. We shop. You save. Full details on example policies at SelectQuote.com/commercials.
Yeah.
It was a little different for me in that it wasn't particularly circumstances that made me start writing novels, but I'd written and directed like 3 low budget features, and on the last one, I kind of felt I'd scratched the itch on it a bit, in that kind of it got a good few reviews, and it did well on the festival circuit, and I got kind of like a premiere in LA for it, and I kind of felt like I'd reached as much as I could go doing it in the way that I did, in terms of like you're scraping money together to get this thing made. You're calling in every favor in the book to get it done.
Yeah.
And I just kind of felt I was constantly frustrated by like having to cut stuff because we couldn't do it because we didn't have the money, or we couldn't get a location, or we couldn't get an actor. So I just kind of needed a change of pace on it, really. And I think I started writing my first novel, which ultimately nothing happened with, when we were on holiday. I just wrote 2,000 words. I didn't really look at it for a week. I came back and looked at it. I thought, it's all right. And then I kind of, it's been pretty much the constant ever since.
Did you guys do the Curtis Brown creative course together at the same time?
No. So Adam went first and he did the 6-month course.
Uh-huh.
Was yours 2016?
Yeah, it would have been, yeah.
And then I went the following year and did the cut down version for 3 months. I think it was a good idea actually to go separately.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know when you both got your agents, but was there a kind of a crossover where you were both submitting to agents through the sort of traditional open route?
Yeah. So we've just told you all the good bits about being a writing couple. And there are also some crazy times that we've had between us where, one of you's on the up and one of you's on the down, and then it's flip-flopped, and then one of you's leapfrogged the other. And it's just been a long, long process. But there was a time where we were both out trying to pitch to just get an agent, to get representation at the beginning.
Yeah.
Luckily, in the end, it happened with not too long between us, didn't it? I think. But yeah, there were some tough times, I think, along the way.
Yeah, I think that overall it's been a brilliant thing, both of us writing, both of us kind of going for the same goal, because you can be supportive of each other. That there were a couple of tough times. I remember the book I'd written on the Curtis Brown course ultimately kind of got rejected. And then Kirsty it was a pitch pitch day, something. You got a pitch day.
The irony is that it was for your agency that now represent you.
Yeah, it's ultimately the agency I went on to sign with. But like, obviously, I wasn't annoyed at Kirsty.
Not much.
I was just annoyed at the situation. Like,
Not much, Jamie.
It come at the end of a tough year.
Very tough.
But I think now at this point, it's like, well, because ultimately you are a team. Like, what does it matter if one person sells a few more books or, one person gets a wider release than the other? Like, when you've got to the point where you're both getting published and you've got an agent and stuff, I think a lot of the big, brutal fights have been won. Not that you can ever take anything for granted. Mm-hmm. I think where it's difficult is where you don't have an agent and you haven't been published and you don't know when it's going to happen. I think that's difficult for every writer, and I'm sure most of your listeners can identify with that situation. But once you got past that point, I do think the battles get a little bit easier, if never.
You just have like a more support, don't you? And you have sort of, for want of a better word, professional support, like knowing that there's an agent, someone who works in this industry that has looked at your work and said, yeah, we could sell this. This could be a book. Yeah,
you get that validation.
Yeah.
And that makes you feel like you're on the right track and that you're winning. And obviously it didn't happen overnight, and understand the plight very much of being a writer without an agent. And, like sometimes you wonder why you're doing it and if you're deluded and, if you'll ever get representation, if anything will ever be published. But it is worth sticking with. And there will be many hurdles to jump. Even once you've got your agent and published, there are more hurdles to jump. But they are the biggest hurdles right at the beginning.
Definitely.
Yes. Because I guess a part of it is you are an unknown quantity even to yourself. I think there's a part in every writer before they get past those first hurdles where they say, I'm writing a lot and I think I'm doing it right, but is it actually good?
Yeah, and I think you should never really lose that. I think when you kind of lose that thing of like, can I do this again? When you're coming down to sit each morning or whenever you're writing, there should be a little bit of you thinking, can I do this again? Because I think when you take it for granted and you get too cocky, then I think that's where your radar goes off a little bit of when something's good or not.
Yes.
And I think that is something that gets a bit easier the more you do it, because you've proved to yourself, you've written that second book or third book or whatever. But there should always be a little bit an element of like, almost like applying to be able to do the job again each time you sit down to write.
Yeah.
Because it is a privilege. And you should definitely never take it for granted.
Yeah, and you do definitely learn something new with every single book. And it teaches you what you got right the first time that you might not get right the second time, as much as it does you getting faster each time and recognizing that you're writing yourself down a rabbit hole earlier, I find. So I find, generally speaking, with each book, you get a little bit faster. Not so much how many words you can get down in 1 minute, but more just the structure of a book and making sure you don't go off-piste.
Yes.
But at the same time, you might have accidentally got something right previously that you then screw up on your second time round or your third. But yeah.
Yeah, it's important to know what you got right, not just sort of not realize that you got something right and then fail to do that in the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Adam, you're with, is it Harry Illingworth?
It is,
your
yeah.
agent at DHH.
That's right.
And Kirsty, you're now with Caroline Sheldon, but you originally submitted to Felicity, true?
That's right. So it's the same agency.
Yeah.
And I think previously, when you referenced you had me at Halloumi, it was Felicity who'd come on to chat with you.
I think it was Caroline.
Was it Caroline as well?
Yeah.
I had them both on, I think, within 2 weeks.
Okay.
So.
I remember Felicity telling me all about it, and I listened to the podcast, and she mentioned you had me at Halloumi. So she has moved to a different role now, and so I'm now represented by Caroline, but I'm still with the same agency.
Yeah. Felicity she's been on twice, and she was one of the first people in publishing that I was lucky enough to meet and really have a good chat with. So although she's moved into a different career, she must have been. I imagine she was wonderful to work with.
She was fab, and she only lives a quarter of a mile away from me as well. So
lovely.
Yeah. We share the same park and the same co-op.
Oh, okay. So you bump into her. Was it strange moving over to Caroline?
It's quite a recent thing, and weirdly, it wasn't that strange. It was all done over Zoom because we haven't seen a lot of each other over the last couple of years for COVID reasons.
Yeah.
But no, it's been pretty smooth actually. They're definitely like a different style, and I appreciate them both in different ways. Caroline has obviously got a wealth of experience and has probably gone through like most scenarios that could happen with an author. She's already gone through.
Yeah.
So she's a great sounding board, and I feel really lucky to have her.
Yes, having spoken to both of them, they very much come across as they were on a very similar wavelength when they worked together.
Yeah, they're really good friends as well. And with it being just the two agents and a boutique agency, they obviously shared a lot together.
Yeah, which is great. Well, I'm glad to hear the transition hasn't really rocked the boat much.
Yeah, it's been great.
Before we move on to the final question, I like to ask people if they can give advice for things that they've learned. So one at a time here. What is the single best piece of advice that you've been given throughout your writing and creative careers?
I'm going to cheat and just do two.
Okay.
The first one was write how you talk, which I think is a brilliant piece of advice for you kind of developing your voice, because only you talk like you. And if you can translate that to the page, then I think half the battle's won already. The second was in terms of getting an agent, try and find an agent that's vaguely kind of got similarities to you in terms of like cultural references, blah, 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 blah. And also like a young, hungry fighter. So someone not necessarily, that's kind of been in the game for ages, but someone who's roughly at the same point as you, because they will kind of die for you, fight battles for you, and look for opportunities for you. I think they're the two pieces of advice that I took to heart and were really proved to be true.
Yes, I think especially about when you look through agents who are open to submissions, a lot of the time younger agents are open more frequently, and it's sometimes it's just because older agents have pretty much a full catalogue and they aren't necessarily looking to expand their list any more than that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Kirsty?
Yeah, I'd probably say, greatest advice would be, quite often when you submit your manuscript, you're obviously, first of all, sending off the first opening chapters. And they are the ones that you tend to polish and polish and polish, because you know that one is your ticket to being asked for a full manuscript. The only thing is, I would say, is please invest more time in the rest of the manuscript. You've got to take that leap of faith that you're going to be asked for the full manuscript, and then get the rest of it up to the quality of the first opening chapters.
Yeah.
Particularly if you're entering a competition as well, I found.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that something that you've been burned by before?
I just noticed it more. So with the Comedy Women in Print prize, I remember polishing and polishing and polishing the opening chapters, sending that off, and then being in a complete whirlwind panic about the rest of the manuscript. So I kind of regretted it myself. But then the following year, they asked me back to be a judge on the Comedy Women in Print. I think that was the 2020 panel for the 2021 winner. And when the submissions came in, the focus had always been on the opening chapters, which is like, just get me noticed. And then, there's a big difference. So I would say have that faith that you're going to be asked for it, and get the rest of the book up to speed as well.
Yeah, no, great advice. And I'm sure that happens a lot more than most people would expect. And that brings us on to the final question, which, as always, is if you were stranded on separate desert islands and could take one book each, which book would you take?
I would take The Secret Diary of Adrian Mole, aged 13 3/4, because I think that it stood the test of time and is, I think, the funniest book with the most amount of heart I've probably read in my entire life, and I read it again and again. It's sitting next to me right now.
It's a wonderful book and very popular amongst all the people that I've spoken to in publishing.
Oh, I just love it. I think Sue Townsend is an absolute legend.
Yeah, excellent choice. How about you, Adam?
Mine would be a little ruder, Kill Your Friends by John Niven.
Oh, yeah.
Which is one of my it was the book that made me want to write a book when I read it. I mean, it's so outrageous. I'm not even sure it get published now, to be honest. It's so frequently disgraceful, but it's just my sort of humor. It's really bad taste. It kind of deals with the period of music, which is one of my favorite pieces of music, Britpop. And it's also in terms of if you want to kind of learn how to write pace and structure and how to kind of the cyclical nature of storytelling, it is a brilliant example of that, which I don't think it probably gets enough credit for it. So yeah, it's the one book I reread. I reread it every year. So it'd be Kill Your Friends.
Yeah, I know it. Didn't they do a film of it?
They did do a film of it. Yeah, it was a very faithful adaptation to it. I think John Niven did the screenplay for it. Yeah, it was definitely one of the better adaptions.
Yes. It reminded me of American Psycho.
They definitely had that vibe to it. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, guys, for coming on and sharing a little glimpse into what's going on with you and what it's like to be a writing couple.
Pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
And for everyone listening, if you want to keep up with everything that Kirsty and Adam are doing, you can follow Kirsty on Twitter at Kirsty Jane Eyre, and Eyre is spelled Eyre. On Instagram, she's Eyre.Kirsty. Adam on Twitter is Adam Simcox, and on Instagram is Simcox Adam. To make sure you don't miss an episode of this podcast, follow us on Right and Wrong UK for Twitter and Right and Wrong Podcast on Instagram. Thanks again for Kirsty and Adam. It's been really great chatting, and thanks to everybody listening. We'll catch you in the next episode. Thanks for hanging around until the end. If you're interested in starting your own podcast but aren't really sure what that looks like, I can't recommend Zencastr enough. It's so simple to host, record, and download your podcast with, and it even has a built-in transcription AI. It functions entirely in the internet browser, which means all your guests have to do is click on a link and they'll be brought into the conversation. If you click on the link in the description, you'll get 30% off the first 3 months. All you have to do is click on the link in the description. Thanks again for supporting the show, and we'll see you in the next episode.
O'Reilly! You need parts? O'Reilly Auto Parts has parts. Need them fast? We've got fast. No matter what you need, we have thousands of professional parts people doing their part to make sure you have it. Product availability. Just one part that makes O'Reilly stand apart. The professional parts people. O'Reilly Auto Parts.